conference on this e-conference on mental health. It's now 1 o'clock in the afternoon when we decided to start. Like I said, this is a seminar on mental health, and since it's such a sensitive subject, I just want to remind everyone to please be respectful of each other so that everyone who takes part here can feel safe. If you have any questions, you can write them in the Q&A and we will do our best to answer them. And also you can, if you want to, you can be anonymous, but I should write questions as well. So I hope everyone can hear me. My name is Schelster, and I'm a student chaplain at Lund University. It's actually a multi-faith chaplaincy, which means it's a collaboration between different religions and churches here in Sweden. And the purpose of it is to support believers as well as non-believers with existential questions and also with counseling. We are also resources if there is some sort of emergency at the university. It can be somebody is in an accident or there is a sudden death, and then we usually help the faculties out with that as well. But I would say in the last 5 years or so, our main focus have been on mental health issues, both in the way that we counsel a lot of students, both Swedish students and international students, both believers and non-believers. We do a lot of counseling, and the main reason we are like sought out is because there is a problem. People have anxiety or they feel stressed out. The last couple of years, we have also worked a lot when it comes to trying to educate both staff at the university and the students. And I actually want to give you a bit of a background. Yesterday, actually, I gave a speech at a memorial service for a young student who had taken her own life here at the university. And during the 10 years that I have been student chaplain here at Lund University, this has unfortunately been 1 to 2 occasions every term when this has happened. And then we at the student chaplaincy have been called in to help out with the memorial service, but also to help the grief support and counseling with students and classmates who are affected by this. After a while, we got sort of tired of coming in afterwards, after the fact. And we started to think about, is there anything we can do to prevent things, to make things better, so this kind of thing doesn't happen as often as it is. And it was actually a student union at the medical faculty here in Lund that took an initiative to have a day about mental health issues. We were invited to participate as well as staff from the faculty. And what that led to was a decision actually at the medical faculty here at Lund University to actually divert funds and time to trying to change that, like students, they acknowledge that mental health is a problem among students. What happened is that they found this method, and that's what I've been asked a little bit to describe here, as it can be something that might be helpful for people in at other universities. It's a model taken from Australia, actually, and it's something called mental health first aid. The background is that there was a doctor, a psychiatrist, and her husband, they were out walking. And they were talking about the fact that almost everyone nowadays received training in CPR, and they are able to assist someone who has like a heart attack or something like that, or physical injury. But almost no one knows how to deal with mental health issues. So when they thought about this, they thought that maybe we should try and get the course started that is sort of the equivalent of CPR, but it focuses on mental health issues. So they started this program called Mental Health First Aid, and it's now spread to, I think, 26 or 27 countries around the world. I can't say exactly which country it is in, but here in Sweden, we have had it now for a couple of years. It's a 2-day course, 16 hours altogether, where you learn sort of like, a CPR, what to do. First, to identify when a person is in need of intervention, like they show signs of not stressed out or they don't feel very well, to ask the question then, how are you feeling? And then to be able to deal with that answer, because I think that's a problem for many people. They are afraid to ask the question, how are you feeling? Because they are afraid they're not going to be able to answer the question or to take actions to help the person if they say, I'm not feeling very well. I have anxiety, I have stress, I have depression. So the purpose of this course is to get people to into that comfort zone where they can ask a question and then feel, I know what to do in this situation. I can recognize the symptoms, I know what different helps there are, and I can direct the person to get help. So I was trained as an instructor for this course together with a colleague, but also more importantly, many of the staff members at the medical faculty were trained in the same way. So nowadays, everyone who is studying to become a doctor or a nurse or a physical therapist, during their second year is like mandatory for them to take this class. So pretty much anyone studying in that field is required to take this course. So they're able to help their classmates and other friends when they're not feeling well from a mental standpoint. And me and my colleague, instead, like that's the medical faculty who's done that work, but me and my colleague, we took the training, so we in turn could train staff at the university who meet students in different scenarios. It can be counseling session, or it can be like, help them out with studies. So we've been training about 60 or 70 people right now when it comes and the feedback we get is very positive. People feel more like equipped to deal with students who are not feeling very well when they meet them. I thought I would give you some sort of like what the idea or what this course covers, so it gets easier to understand what it's all about. You learn to identify risk factors and warning signs for mental health, also addiction concerns and strategies for how to help people both in crisis and non-crisis situations. And most importantly, you learn how to direct people to get the correct help. So the topics that are covered there is depression and mood disorders, it's anxiety disorders, trauma, psychosis, and substance use disorders. So it's quite a wide take on that. And what you learn is basically how do you recognize if someone is suffering from these disorders. And then you used to, if you have trained CPR, you know that like, you learn a special schedule or a routine, how to help someone, what to do first and what to do secondly. And there is something, there's equivalent here in this program. Is 5 steps that you learn. And the first step is to assess the situation and the crisis, and especially when it comes to risk for suicide or harm in that person. The second step, of course, then is to listen non-judgmentally. The third step is to give reassurance and information to the person. The fourth step is to encourage appropriate professional help. And the fifth step, to encourage self-help and other support strategies. So what it means is that if a student comes to me, I should be able to recognize that this is a person who is not feeling very well at the moment. And I should have some sort of idea that this could be something, maybe a depression, or it could be that this person is suffering from a psychosis or a bipolar disorder. I should sort of recognize a little bit what it might entail. And then I knowing that, I start like to ask questions. How are you feeling? And I'm listening to that person. I give them time to talk about how they're feeling, basically. And after I have listened, I try to reassure them and say, this is a problem, but there are help. You can go to this kind of like organization, you can go to doctor here, you can go to counselor there, there's medication for this kind of disorder, there's help to get. Because often people, when they're suffering, they don't know how to get help. They don't know what to do, basically. So we're training people to be able to guide people, direct people to the help that they need. I think the main thing, there is also one large part of this course is to recognize when there is a crisis situation, when you yourself have to act right away. So you learn how to deal with a panic attack, how to calm a person down when they're suffering from a panic attack, how to recognize the symptoms, and how to get over that crisis that the panic attack is. You also learn to ask about suicidal thoughts and behaviors and how to act when a person say, I don't want to live anymore. How to help that person to get the help that they need in that situation. I think most importantly, not to get afraid, and you actually get the courage to ask a person that question. You also get to recognize and non-suicidal self-injury, and I know that is a topic we're going to hear more about later on today. But you learn how to recognize that crisis situation and how to help the person in that specific situation. Also, acute psychosis, and when there is an overdose from withdrawal from alcohol or drug use, and also reaction to traumatic events. It can be that the person been in an accident or something like that. And I would say that the response to this has been very positive, both from students, but mostly from faculty members who feel like they now know how to react in these situations. I talked to the director of the program who was at the memorial service yesterday, and he like really put it into words. He says like, we both agreed on how important it was to ask a student, like, how are you feeling? But then he said exactly what this course is like aimed at. To say, okay, you ask a question, but how do you handle the answer? And that is, I think, a lot of people like shy back from that. I think it's really difficult to know how to deal with that. And I think this course is the best course I ever encountered that helps you get over that fear and actually give you tools to deal with that situation. So that's basically what I'm being asked to talk about. And I think it's 1:15 now. So that's my time. So then we will move on to the next topic here. See, let me see what's coming up. It's Vera Dickman, and she's going to talk about creativity. They have workshops around creativity and its role for mental health issues. Is that right? I think you have to unmute there because we can't hear you.
Right, I'm unmuzzled, mask off. So I can say good day, bon dia, hey, sia, bonjour, and good to be with you all. And thank you, Jan, for introducing this very important topic. I will end the course you're offering. I will too speak about a course we're offering at UGLO level to do with embracing the unknown. That's the name of the group, but the course which is being offered right now is actually E-Spaces of Creative Encounters. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that and about the experiences students have had with the course and where it comes from. So to follow on from what you're saying, I would say we often resort to fight or flight techniques when outside our comfort zone and faced with fear or suffering. We fear rejection, exclusion, losing face, and failure, so our impulse is to withdraw. But instead, we could explore unknown dimensions of ourselves and others creatively. I mean, who would refuse to develop these skills? Increased resilience when faced with uncertainty, increased agency and creativity in digital space, first-hand experience of embodied multimodal communication, enhanced personal, reflective, and creative skills, and enhanced intercultural awareness. Now, in fact, we learn these through creative techniques, and we can say they are not only for artists. We believe that everyone can benefit from them. And this is the credo of the Embracing the Unknown group, born over a year ago when a chance encounter invited us to resist the impact of the COVID crisis together. So our workshops address aspects of learning that are not usually seen as necessary for the whole person, because employment is the priority of educational programs. But in today's world in which we are faced with uncertainty, we need to maintain well-being and build resilience while deprived of our usual process of communication and sources of income. Yet we can also take the opportunity to reach beyond borders and disciplines and explore this new space creatively. This is the time we can authorize the expression of the artist or the creative drive in ourselves, recognizing its valuable place in transmuting our emotions into a shared aesthetic experience of the unknown in and around us, and thus building resilience. So this is what Joana Fernandes of University of Porto said when asked of her experience before she won a prize for her UGLO TED Talk on the subject. Her YouTube will be shared with us in the resource will be shared with you in the chat, and she was going to be with us today, but allowed me to speak for her. She says this: creativity is extremely crucial to mental health. It is very important to be able to change perspectives and to see the world through a different point of view. Sometimes it's also good to forget about everything that is usually going on in your life or in your head. I've been having psychological and psychiatric issues for a couple of years. Being able to meet new people at university and engaging in activities such as e-spaces of creative encounter has been a life-changing experience, allowing me to slowly leave my rigid and harmful mindset. As for my future career as a biomedical engineer, creativity is very important to allow me to come up with new ideas. As I'm made to perceive humans as cells and machines, creative activities also remind me that people are this unique system that is much more than a clever robot with dancing atoms. We're much more complex than that, and we're much more than I'll probably ever understand. And as I intend to work for human beings, I must keep that in mind. So UGLO has understood the value of non-formal cultural interchange for global health and supports new ways to explore the current health crisis and to transform it into positive collaborative learning experience. So my role at the University Paris-Saclay is both to be intercultural coordinator and an associate member of the research lab, SLAM, that's Synergies for Languages, Art, Music. But our education, and more particularly higher education, often tends towards certainties, towards specialized knowledge and expertise. So rational scientific mastery. And students apply to high-ranking universities and aspire to rewarding and secure employment positions. But what does job security mean today, and to what extent can we depend on certainty? And what about all the other aspects of our lives? Relationships to each other, to nature, to the changing environment, to ourselves, and to well-being. What does it mean to live a balanced life? How do we deal today with all the constraints and broken dreams imposed by coronavirus, for example? In fact, how do we maintain agency and deep-rooted European values like freedom of choice in the face of uncertainty? How do we get beyond what could be paralyzing fear? How do we educate ourselves towards resilience? In a way, uncertainty is the only thing we can be sure of. Can we educate towards embracing the uncertainties of life and facing new questions when they appear before us as inevitable challenges? How do we deal with the emotions generated by unexpected challenges? So, in fact, artistic experience is indeed, expertise is indeed a discipline not accessible to all. We don't all have a musical ear or 20/20 vision or a steady hand. But access to music and the arts seems to open a door to freedom for the body and mind, where movement, emotional release, and playfulness of the imagination procure a sensation of well-being, both collective and individual. Of course, the brain releases dopamine. But if one tried to manufacture failure, for example, a failure, as the highly unpredictable and successful South African artist William Kentridge points out, one would not be able to. In order to fail, we would have to succeed. So why do we fear failure? Instead, why can't we adopt an attitude of openness to moments where things are going wrong and let the things that we push to the edges come to the center? If a good idea of what we initially planned isn't working, take the idea at its edges. Rely on and have faith in the idiocy of free association, and then see if there's meaning in an alternative. Put the doubt and the uncertainty right into the center of your practice, okay? And say, for example, no, it isn't. Sounds like a contradiction, or no, it is. Okay. Is this advice we can give? It's true, the brain feels uncomfortable with uncertainty because it likes patterns. It likes to predict what could happen as a self-preservation reflex. But the famous 20th century Franco-Belgian poet and self-taught visual artist Henri Michaud claimed in his 60s, when he was in his 60s, "My lack of skills continues to provide me with surprises. Young in knowledge, young at heart." Yet how can we allow ourselves to enter a co-creative, interactive, and almost magical space open to continuous possibility? How can we build trust between people of different origins and backgrounds? How can people who do not know each other build something new together and find meaning and pleasure in doing so? When can we listen to each other's stories and begin to heal the wounds? How can our experience, even simply that of being European citizens, be shared? What do we share? To quote Henri Michaud once again, art is what fights inertia. What counts is the tonus, the energy. It is towards this that one directs oneself, consciously or unconsciously, towards a state of maximum élan, which is of maximum density of being and of actualization. Mouvement, in movement. So we do believe that the power to transform difficult experiences into new ways of seeing, or to transmute obstacles into new forms of interaction, gives access to resilience, which in itself is one of the most valuable resources we require for survival. So how do we introduce it into the curriculum? And this is the attitude with which early last year, when faced with the pandemic and sudden confinement, we went into the 2020 hackathon of the EU versus the virus, with the intention to fight back against the sudden deprivation of freedom and hope, this sentence of isolation and talking heads. The artist is of the future, says Henri Michaud, which is why he moves things forward. In freeing up his own situation, he frees up 100 more, the situations of an entire era, of a new era taking shape. And doubtless the scientists feel the same way. So it was the UGLA president, Sandrine Lacombe, who challenged the partners in April 2020 to join forces and meet at the hackathon to fight the virus. And as a coordinator for interculturality, I felt my role particularly challenged, as mobility would be affected, as would integration of the international students. How would they interact on their new campuses? What interaction would be possible? At the hackathon, we were invited to join with our UGLA partners, to create innovative solutions, or to join teams of our choice. I sought out teams where internationalization and working across cultures and digital borders was a preoccupation, and that is how I met 6 different performance artists from the Parliament of Practices. I naturally felt drawn to working on a creative and intercultural solution. The artists I met were experimenting with using digital space in an embodied way so as to be able to continue to perform and to be as fully present in 2D as in 3D, at the same time taking the opportunity to extend their reach across borders. By the end of the weekend, we had created a new subgroup of the Parliament calling ourselves Embracing the Unknown, and immediately began a new research project. This consisted in running 3-hour online workshops in a hybrid space, including the home, its space, its objects, every Saturday, and reflecting on the process later that week. Elated and energized by the process, we continued with no interruption for 10 months till we finally met in September in Germany for a proximal workshop. And it was then we decided to take the project to campus in order to fight student isolation in the new academic year and to create virtual exchange or mobility experience within our alliance in a non-formal learning context. So we agreed on a time frame of 4 consecutive weeks with a commitment to 3 hours a week per workshop on a Saturday morning for a maximum of 20 participants per session. 2 of our performance artists from different fields, theatre, dance, voice, and the visual arts, would run every session. This would give staff and students a unique chance both to interact with artists and with each other in virtual and intercultural exchange, where they would experience being collaborators and co-producers of culture, not consumers. We launched the e-spaces of creative collaboration workshops on our UGLA website early March, and within a week had 19 registrations from 4 universities and a variety of nationalities and fields: nutritional sciences, biomedical engineering, media informatics, educational sciences, law, management, psychology, music, fine arts, theatre, art therapy, and non-formal learning for international projects. Trust building is an important part of the process, enabling those who were previously unknown to each other to connect across roles, cultures, disciplines, and emerge enriched from the experience. The activities focus on the flow, energy, and dynamics of the process, rather than on creating an end product, also taking the time to reflect and exchange on the experiences. They welcome and encourage individual connections, contributions to the group connection. So in closing, I could say that sometimes participants volunteered comments like by email, "That was really fun and interesting," or "I'm definitely feeling motivated and inspired now, which is helping me working on my portfolio," or "really look forward to next week." But then other students said things like, "I think that the access to creativity is essential to a good mental health state. Without it, we can't get away from the real world feeling. We can't set ourselves free. In my personal case, when I feel down, I find myself looking at my favorite works of art or just reading my favorite book, Le Petit Prince." Ines, in fact, has joined us again for this session. She says, "I think that abstraction that the creative activities provide us help to focus later on more serious activities." But I guess the specificity of e-spaces of collaboration was creative encounter. That's my timer telling me to stop. And so that is my concluding sentence, that the specificity was using our European network to cross borders of languages and discipline, get to know each other, explore the unknown other and self, and basically facilitate the meeting, the desire to go and meet others, so that COVID is not stopping you any longer. If anything is stopping you, it's only finance, and there Erasmus can help. So I do look forward to having you join us if you want to. You can see that these workshops are still open. We're still running sessions 20th, 27th, and 4th of December. It says the deadline is closed for registration, but we've reopened it. So until Thursday, if you want to join us for the next session, please do. And I will try in the chat to put Joanna Fernandez's wonderful talk that you can listen to, her wonderful testimony. So thank you very much for your valuable attention, and feel free to put questions in the Q&A as we go along.
Thank you, Vera.
I'll stop the sharing.
Now we're going to move on. Many of the students that we meet in counseling here at Lund are suffering from the next eating disorders. So, and I know it's a really difficult problem to have. So we're going to hear next from Saga Stolz-Cruz, which is from Tjejzonen, which in translation means girl zone. So go ahead, Saga.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. As you said, I am going to talk about addictive behaviors and specifically eating disorders today. I work at Schelster, which is a Swedish-based support organization, and we have an eating disorder department there where I am the manager for support. So what we do is we are a non-profit organization, and we provide emotional support to anyone who identifies as a girl between the ages of 10 and 25 years old. We have been active since 1998, and since then we have developed a method that is based on active listening. And we call this the Stora Syster-metoden, which translates to Big Sister method. It has been found to help prevent mental health issues by Örebro University. They did a study on us between 2011 and 2015. So we are based in Sweden, but all of our support, even though it is in Swedish, the chat is available from any country. And a lot of our volunteers do speak English. So if you feel the need to chat, please find us on our website. We provide specialized support regarding eating disorders via chat. And we also have a support email for people who are close to someone with an eating disorder. So not directly to help with an eating disorder, but for the people who are around someone who is, and how to deal with it and how to approach it. Whether it's a parent or a friend or a coach or anyone who's close. We've identified a need for this specialized support in addition to all our support, because it's become apparent that our volunteers found it was too overwhelming to approach this with the knowledge that they had in the non-specific chat rooms. So we have developed a way to approach this subject specifically, because we recognize that it's not something that you can do without, at least in our method. So how do you know if someone near you is suffering from an eating disorder? There are various signs that may indicate that someone has an eating disorder. Keep in mind that these signs do not have to indicate this, but they might. So a person might be skipping meals, they might count calories, they may be starting to exclude foods that are not considered healthy or clean. This person might be losing or gaining weight. Irregular or absent periods. Maybe they visit the bathroom close to meal times. Their hands and feet might be cold due to poor circulation. They might be exercising more and more frequently. They might have concentration difficulties, or they might isolate. You don't have to be underweight or overweight to suffer from an eating disorder. So you can't tell by how someone looks. So what do you do if you have someone near you that you want to help or you want to talk to? It's very important to keep in mind that an eating disorder is rarely just about food or weight. It doesn't happen in a vacuum, and it usually stems from an underlying problem. And although it may be possible to cure a possible eating disorder, the underlying causes will not go away just if they're not treated, and they can manifest themselves in other harmful behaviors. Most people with an eating disorder need professional help. It's a very big and difficult step for most, but it always helps to have someone who they trust as their support when they take this step. So when you approach your close person, you have to make sure you have plenty of time and privacy when you start the conversation. Try to be honest. and direct about what worries you. Do not be afraid if they get annoyed or angry with you. It's a defense mechanism that the eating disorder uses to be able to stay in the person. So just stay strong and listen to the anger and explain that you just want to talk. Be sure to let them lead the conversation and do not rush it. A few words may be enough the first time, and then you take it from there, but be persistent and show that it's possible to talk to you about this and their thoughts without any consequences. That's the important part, that you will not do anything about this against their will. This is just a conversation. You won't make it worse, and instead it will show them that this is not dangerous to talk about. And the more one talks about their thoughts, the less space it takes in your head, and then you may be able to get to the bottom of the causes of the thoughts and behaviors. You are the most helpful as a friend when you're not trying to fix the problem, but you're instead just a safe space to think out loud. So how do you ask? The important thing is to ask open-ended and exploratory questions to try and understand what the eating disorder means to them. So for example, what does your relationship with food look like? This is to kind of connect back to what Jan was saying earlier. This is a form of a non-judgmental question where you're asking their perspective of something. You're not saying it has to be good or it has to be bad. You're just asking them, what is their relationship? What does your mind tell you when you eat? And what does your body tell you? And then they can explore if there is a difference between the two. Who are you without your eating disorder? And these are the things you could ask once you've established that there is an eating disorder. There might not be, but you have to have this. You can have this at the back of your mind when you start the conversation. Many people find it very difficult to support someone with an eating disorder. As I was saying earlier, we had to develop a specialized chat for this because it's not easy. No one is expecting anyone to be an expert or even know how to do it. But the most important thing is that you are honest and open-minded when you speak to your friend. Maybe you might feel that you could risk encouraging or triggering their behavior. That's often a fear when someone is approaching this. And maybe you could be afraid that you say the wrong thing or that you don't know enough about the subject. But you have to remember that the first step towards recovery is to be able to talk about the eating disorder and the emotions around it. Keep in mind that compassionate listening is not about being an expert, but it's about being there and allowing the other person to tell their truth without judgment. Trust that you're doing enough when you are listening. So, what if it's me? And so far we've spoken about how to behave if it's your friend that's exhibiting these behaviors and you're worried about it, but of course it could also apply to yourself, and you might recognize yourself in the things I've said so far. And if it is you, you deserve to be healthy and happy, just like anyone around you, you would want them to be if you saw this in them. So if you see this in yourself, this applies to you as well. Give yourself the same compassion as you would someone around you. Most people with an eating disorder need professional help. Not everyone, but most people do. So you should start with telling someone you trust, seek professional help, and make sure you get the right help that suits you. You should not suit the help, they should suit you. So if they treat you as if you are not sick enough for the help, or you don't, for some reason, don't exhibit the behaviors they want you to, you are with the wrong person. It doesn't mean that you do not deserve help. So you have to find someone else that can help you, because you know how you feel, and the right person will understand that. I have spoken quicker than I planned, so I can answer some questions. Let's see, I have So I have a question regarding someone who's saying they have symptoms, but they never thought of themselves as having an eating disorder. And should I do something about it? Yes. It's never too early to do something. And what that is, only you know. So maybe do some exploration online to find some more information. And if you feel like you have someone close to you to speak to, just start speaking about it. But it's never too early. If you have the thoughts, it probably means something is wrong. Let's see. Someone is asking if they have tried to raise the question, but the friend doesn't want to speak about it. Well, you can't push someone. If they don't want to talk about it, you can't force them, but you can show them that you are there when they are ready. And that's more than that you can't do. So maybe they'll speak to someone else. Maybe you're not the right person for them. But as long as you show that you are available when they are, that's what you can do. Let's see. At Sonan, yes, we help girls. Anyone who identifies as a girl is welcome to Sonan. We don't specifically say that we help in English, but a lot of our volunteers can speak English. So it's always worth a try in the chat room. Let's see how much more time I have, a couple minutes. Yes, as someone is asking, they have a friend who's recovering from anorexia and she's not sure if she can complement the progression she's seeing. Usually it's best to avoid anything that is regarding to appearance, and you can instead try and have a conversation about how they're feeling mentally. How are they coping emotionally with their progression? How are they doing? It's better not to comment. Don't really include weight or shape or appearance when you raise this question, just for safety. Let's see, I think I have time for one more. Yeah. Someone feels their heart racing when they eat lunch. Is it an eating disorder? That's very hard to decide. But if you feel a physical reaction to anything, it is a good idea to always seek medical help, of course, to find out if there's something else that could be. And the medical professional should be able to help you, even if it turns out to be psychological. So always talk to them first when you have a physical reaction. How does the period absent period relate with food problem? When you are malnutritioned, your reproductive system reacts. So it just, your body doesn't have enough resources to power something like your reproductive system. So it shuts down. I think that's all the questions I can answer today. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Vera. We will have time at the end of this session here to ask and answer more questions. And judging from many questions, this is a very important subject you talked about, Saga, because in my experience, this is like many students are struggling with this. And anyone working with students or students themselves would benefit from having more knowledge about this and how to help. So that's very helpful. If I'm correct now, we are going to jump forward a little bit to the Vox Pop audio. Is that correct? Was it Isabel who was going to do that, or are we ready to take Tomas here?
Perhaps I could also just quickly answer the question that was put to me that I didn't take at the time and answer in print, which was simply to understand whether Embracing the Unknown is a workshop or a theatre group. Embracing the Unknown is a group. This is the artist group that was created with an interculturalist to run workshops, which we call e-spaces of creative encounter. So the e-spaces are workshops that you can sign into, but you don't belong to a theatre group when you sign into those workshops. Although if you want to learn to lead them and be part of that and train others, why not? Okay. So thanks. We go on to Isabel.
Yes,
Thank
hello
you.
everyone. I will share the Vox Pop videos with you. And basically what that is we have asked questions to students from all of these 5 UGL universities, and they have recorded their answers. Some will be only audio and some are without video. So I will share that with you now.
Because I am autistic, that always impacted the way I've studied and how I've dealt with and how I've learned and how I worked and did my homework, etc. What helped me overcome it was always the help of my teachers and my professors. It never really contributed to the problem, but it sure affected how I dealt with the challenges that university has, and it makes the challenges that we university students have as university students. Does that make? I hope that makes sense. And because that makes because there are a lot of unexpected issues that me as an autistic student or as a person with depression or anxiety have to deal with that some people don't have to deal with because they don't have these issues. Okay.
I struggle with depression, anxiety, and a few other problems related to mental health. As a student in FLUP, it's quite hard to fit in both in the classroom as well as outside of it. Talking to a teacher or a classmate even can be a terrifying task. As for learning, following each class's rhythm, so to speak, can become unbearable at times, and it causes me to relapse, I have to confess. That's why sometimes I must leave the classroom and sometimes even be absent for a few days. I'm still learning how to manage everything with help from a private psychiatrist and a private psychologist. The university helped me slightly improve my social skills, it's true, but it also caused me to relapse, as I said, several times, due to ending up with too much stress on certain situations. Here in Porto, I believe we should raise awareness to mental health issues and show how normal they can be among young adults. Also, better professionals for our mental health support service could be an improvement to take into consideration. Thank you for your time.
Last year, I was not feeling very comfortable with university. I was very sad. Um, I could not enjoy what I was studying. For me, it was just too much work, too much transportation to get to the uni and also to get back home. I was doing 3 hours per day. The schedule was not helpful. But fortunately for me, we had the lockdown, so we were studying at home. Even with this, I was not feeling very good. But I finally get better at the end of the semester 1. I think that university need to do studies about their students to know how they feel and why do they feel like that. Is it transportation, the schedule, the subjects, food? It's really important to know how your students are feeling for them to be more happier at university, because it's the aim to be happier and to enjoy your studies.
I think first of all, this university needs to make sure that it has structure to have these kind of students in their university, to have students with depression, with anxiety, and it has them. Yeah, it has has this kind of structure is prepared to help them if they need help, to deal with their problems if they search for help, and that it has their need and it has their needs met. And and their needs might not be special; they're just needs, and not the dilemma. Oh, they're special needs. No, their needs are needs, not special. I hope it makes sense.
Was that the end of the video? I guess so. So then I'm asking if Tamasis is with us yet. I don't see him, so I don't really know what to do now. Is there any more questions we can answer behind? Let's see if there is a message.
Yes, I think what we can do now is we would like to ask a few questions to see what the audience thinks. So we have a few polls we can try. So I think we're ready. So here's the first question to see how you feel. Have you encountered any mental health issues like stress, anxiety, addiction, depression, bullying, or other things like that? So we have a lot of participation in this.
Yeah. I think this is a very interesting answer because like it really shows how common this is. There were some students in the video said, that it seems like many people don't know how common this is. Depression will probably affect about 25 to 30% of all of us during our lifetime. And it is probably about the same number when it comes to different sources of anxiety. I heard a lecture talking about this, and the estimate that person gave was that if you calculate who's affected by mental health issues, the person suffering themselves, their family, friends, the estimate he gave was, or she gave, was like about 75% of the population is affected by mental health issues every day. So it's a very large problem. And there have been economists who actually said that like is probably the best investment in the future a country can do is to invest more money into the mental health issue with doctors and treatment and all of that, because it costs a lot of not only human suffering, but also in terms of money every year. But still, it's a problem that is very invisible, I would say, which is very sad and very unfortunate.
So I think we can see the results of this. And just as Jan said, it's very common. Shall we take another question? This one has to do with the support you've had from the university. We'll end the poll in just a moment and publish the results. So as we can see, several people have thought about this. Several have turned to the university for support.
Yeah, and this is also interesting because it makes a huge difference to reach out and ask for help. Just to talk to someone about these issues can be a huge help. I think Saga mentioned that also, just to be able to talk about it with someone can be a huge relief. So, and I know like in many universities, the student health office is overwhelmed with people wanting to come here. That is why I think the best idea would maybe to spread knowledge, and so you could actually talk to each other, or you could talk to staff in general, to spread the knowledge about this, so we can like help each other a little more. But not everyone needs to see a psychiatrist or a psychologist. Often it just helps with having support from friends and family and teachers. So yeah, I think that was also something to consider in this question.
Yes, and we have one last question. This is about if you have turned to the university for support, were you satisfied with the service? So perhaps not everyone will be able to answer this. Since that's approximately a third, we'll end the poll. I find this a bit surprising. So of the people who have looked for service from the university, about a third were not satisfied with the services. And then you have a little bit more than half that were either satisfied or somewhat satisfied.
To me, it just shows how complex it is, you know, it often takes time to find solutions that work. And often time is something that is like in short supply when it comes to getting to the student health office and things like that. So yeah, it just shows that this is something we have to work more to deal with, get better at.
Yes, I think this is a little bit of one of the points that we want to bring up and talk about, generally speaking. We are all representing universities in some way, and support systems. And how can we make sure people get the support that they need when they need it?
There have been polls made by universities both in England and the US that show that the mental health among students have deteriorated in the last 10 years or so. So this is unfortunately not something that is getting better. It is, in my experience, also something that's getting worse. And I don't think, you know, that universities are to blame for this. I think universities are blaming or like dealing with the situation in all the society, where it's like, I don't know what it is with society right now. There's lots of stress and lots of pressure to be in a certain way. And I think that's part of the reason why we see these numbers like rise for health time, especially when it comes to the issues that Saga was talking about, like the media and like the pressure from like your surroundings play a big part in that. And also social media have shown to be a risk factor in all of this. But now I think we have Thomas with us. And let me see now, you were going to talk about bullying, among other things, exclusion. So I will let you talk and turn the word over to you.
Thank you. Just a sec, I open up my presentation. I'm sorry I had a class which is offline, and I need to run back to do this offline to the office. So
No problem. Take your time.
okay. All right. Thank you very much. And I would like to warmly welcome everyone. My name is Tamás Pongo, and thank you for the floor to speak up, and thank you very much for the invitation. And I try to share my screen. I hope it's going to work. I'd like to get some feedback, whether you can see it and you can see it full screen. Is it working? Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. So first of all, this 15 minutes, as far as I know, is it correct? I have 15 minutes, right? Okay. I'm going to check my watch as well. So I'm a lawyer, first of all, which means that I call myself, I am wired to think all the time in boxes and in definitions, because that's how law works. Also, I like to think outside of the box. So this is really a collision all the time, being a lawyer and thinking outside of the box. But my research topic, I did research bullying and cyberbullying in the last 6 years. I wrote my PhD, I published a book, I went to the United States for research. So this is my passion regarding research, to focusing and try to find solutions for bullying and cyberbullying. And I can talk days without even a break about bullying and cyberbullying. So this is going to be a very brief introduction just to see the picture, what we actually discussing. First of all, we need to define the differences between bullying and cyberbullying. Just a few hints about it. Usually we talk bullying and cyberbullying in the context of the school and educational environment. So we're focusing on school bullying. But there is workplace bullying, or it could be bullying in school context, but in the higher education, when we are not discussing with adolescents, and bullying among underage children. So I think that we need to really define first which type of bullying we're going to discuss. Today, I would like just to focus the school bullying from K1 to K12. And so first of all, bullying, as the old one, or the old definition, it is like a face-to-face element, when basically you know who teased you, who ridiculed you, who humiliated you. So there was always a face-to-face connection. However, in cyberbullying, it is all over the place, and we are there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So you cannot really find a safe haven, which was before. So usually bullying stopped at the schoolhouse gate. So when you leave the premises of the school, but right now we cannot really say that. We are online all the time. Social media really exaggerated all the problems and amplified the effects and the impact of the freedom of speech as well. And I think that also the ridiculing and humiliating expressions as well. And what is really a significant characteristic of cyberbullying compared to bullying, the number of audience. The first bully victim or cyberbully victim, according to the research, is the Star Wars kid, who actually had a mob or something, and he played Star Wars and shared it online, and he was the first victim. According to research, the first victim in politics and in widely audience outside of the school setting was actually Monica Lewinsky, because the so-called incident with Bill Clinton. And so there are differences who we think that being the first bully victim, but definitely in the United States, the death of Megan Mayer was the one which really was a spark and ignited the fire of anti-bullying fight. But it is the cyberbullying issues. If you compare to bullying, bullying is researched in Sweden from the 1980s, for example, with Dan Olweus, who was like one of the greatest researchers of bullying at all. And the Olweus anti-bullying program is still widely used all over the world and in research as well. So I think that you really need to focus also the country where you live and whether it is an important issue or not. Second of all, you need to define it. And of course, you need to define it, but again, how you define definitions. I know it sounds like, okay, what this guy is talking about, but believe me, it's highly important because, for example, in Hungary, school bullying was the same, according to non-lawyers, as online harassment. However, I had cases like that when parents went to the police and they said, I have printed out all the messenger chat background and everything and all the information, but the policeman said in Hungary that it's not harassment because it does not fit in the criminal law definition of harassment, so I cannot charge anybody, and they were sent home. And it happened at least 2 times I'm aware of, but probably there were more. And also we have 2 definitions of online harassment or harassment as all, the criminal law definition and the discrimination law definition. Again, which one do you want to apply? Because one is an administrative law procedure, the other one is a criminal law procedure. There are differences how you would like to, for example, prove that it actually happened and what happened. So it's really not easy, I think. So what is school bullying? It's in both of the definitions are from the United Nations, the UNICEF, because from the 1st to 3rd of November, that was the World Anti-Bullying Forum, when all the bullying researchers gathered together every 2 years and shared their research results in a 3-day long conference. Around like 1,000 researchers and presenters usually there. And the UNICEF established a new definition, try to replace the old one. The first one is the old one, when you see that this is an unwanted aggressive behavior, repeated, and there is an imbalance of power. This is the offline bullying definition. Regarding cyberbullying, the repetition could be questioned because even a single act like posting something could establish bullying according to my results and my approach. But the imbalance of power is a necessary element, according to researchers. However, I checked all the anti-bullying laws of the United States, I checked the case law at the federal level, and most of the legislators, for example, do not think that imbalance of power is necessary. Only 6 out of 27 laws has this element of definition. So they cannot really agree since 1980 or since 2000 what we are talking about. We know that there are crucial elements, so it's not easy. Second of all, there is the new definition below. Honestly, this is, in a legal sense, it's very hard. If somebody would like to include the second, so the new UNICEF definition, into a administrative procedure or like a disciplinary procedure at the university or at the school, I think there could be either constitutionality issues in the United States definition, definitely, because what is online behavior at first? How do you categorize it? What do you think fit in the context and what should be excluded? And also that I have the problem with that there is an imbalance of power enabled or inhibited by the social, institutional norms and context of school and the education system. I think it's too wide. They want to include everything, and it is a very good research definition, but I think in practice, there could be issues with its application. And here is the definition of cyberbullying I established in my research. It is a complex definition based upon US legislation, US case law, and worldwide academic scholars definition. And also I checked the European Union standpoints and the United Nations research paper. So I try to make such a complex definition which take into consideration each side of the lawyers who has the right to establish definitions in legislation. And this is really, it's too much, I know. And it might seem that how can you use it in practice? But actually, this is the one which try to fit in the constitutional and legal context. So if anyone would apply this definition in a disciplinary procedure at a high school, in a university anti-bullying policy, or in a legislative definition, it would definitely pass the constitutional muster. So it would be a constitutionally applicable definition. And I think it is highly important not to have an unconstitutional law. And last but not least, at the last line and point C, there is the issue of off-campus electronic speech, which means that you, as a high school student, post something online on your grandma's computer or smartphone on Sunday, but it has a substantial impact on the school context, whether the school has a right to suspend you or take any actions in order to discipline you. And I think it's not really easy to decide. What I found as a solution, if there is I created a step-by-step analysis how you should do it. And you need to find a sufficient nexus between the speech and the school. And then if it is established and it causes substantial disruption in the school environment, then you can really act. And also what substantial disruption is, there are also definitions in my work, what I think substantial disruption is. And let's play with the numbers. As Winston Churchill said, I only believe in statistics that I doctored myself. So I checked some recent results. And according to one research result, the parents reported that their children was a victim of cyberbullying in 2011, 2018. You can see that Sweden, Germany, France, and Hungary has the data. Portugal has no data. And if you look at this, you would think at first that, oh my God, it's better to live in France and Hungary than Sweden regarding bullying. It's not true. The reason why is there, because in Sweden, anti-bullying and bullying research is like 30, almost 40-year-old, which means that there is less latency. Swedish people are, probably there are many, so you can really say that it's not true, but they already know what bullying is. They knew in the high schools, and they are educated and they are trained how to report it. So they actually recognize it is an issue. Compared to Hungary, when until 2011, when this research actually started, we had no bullying and anti-bullying research or cyberbullying research at all. In 2015, when I told people I'm dealing with bullying, they asked me first what it is. It was 2014, 2015 in Hungary. So do not believe statistics at first sight, because probably they are doctored or they do not really focusing on the social context behind that. And there is another recent data. According to UNICEF, every third Hungarian adolescent between 10 and 18 years was a victim of bullying. Compared, just to prove my point, compared to the data above, Hungary, 10% who reported. According to this, 33% is a victim. It depends which statistics you're looking at, and probably the UNICEF is more trustable than the other one, but not necessarily. So at the end of my presentation, you can really ask the question, okay, but what should we do? Because this guy was talking about law, talking about definitions and statistics, but how we solve it. If I want to live in a wonderland where every wish of mine came true, then I would say that we should need anti-bullying laws. States must pay anti-bullying programs, finance it, train and educate the teachers, educate the kids, educate even the parents, and try to be there when the first spark, we just see that it could be a problem, and be there. And do not wait until the big flames are on and we have a bigger issue. Okay, so if we leave Wonderland and we go back to reality, what we can do is focusing on prevention and intervention. Prevention, I would say that educate everyone and do not be afraid to admit that it could be a problem. And it's okay if we have a bullying issue, but we need to focus on how we solve it before it gets bigger or it gets more severe. And if there is an issue we realize later, then we have a trained and a non-punitive approach regarding intervention and try to solve the problem and do not punish the participants, including the bully and cyberbully. Not the first step is not punishing. And what you can do is think global and act local. So see the problem worldwide, understand the issue, but try to help and make some change at your community. So try to convince students to learn about bullying. Try to organize events within a school context. Try to involve experts to talk about it. So try to help and tell people that it's okay if it happens. Of course, we are not happy about it, but kids and fighting for dominance is a biological necessity and drive. We cannot really say kids don't want to be dominant in your community and in your group. I mean, at the beginning, when I started research, I believed that we can. Now I realize that we don't need to change human nature. We just need to adapt and try to be there at the very first moment when help is necessary and intervention necessary. So I think the easiest way, of course, in the world, when you can be anything, it's easier if you just be kind and don't try to hurt anybody, and then won't be bullying. Or at the end of the day, if everybody's kind, we don't need criminal law at all. So back to Wonderland at the end of the day. Thank you very much for the chance and for the presentation, and I'm open to discuss and any questions, and I hope I can fit in the time frame as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tomas. I really like the last, in a world where you can be anything, be kind. That's really good. So we have some time left where you can ask questions to anyone here, Tomas or Vera or Saga or me, in the Q&A, and see if we get any questions here in the last minutes or so.
Yes, I can actually read. We have received some questions here for Tomas that I can ask you. So the first one is, how can one prevent cyberbullying, both as an individual, but also as an organization? I know you touched upon this in the last part of your presentation, but if you want to do a smaller recap. You're muted, sorry.
I'm sorry, I was muted. So thank you very much. It's a very good question. I think that the first step, what you can do is really think. So in cyberbullying, I think you should think before you send something. That's one solution. And in the IT sector, there's the so-called Rethink software, which already has that. You want to send something on social media if you already installed this program, and before you send it, they said that, hey, there are some violent text. Are you sure you want to send it? It's the same like Google try to call you if there is, you said attachment in the text and you don't have attachment in your email, and you said that, hey, are you sure you want to send it? But definitely, if someone wants to bully, it won't stop. I think, of course, in a wider spectrum, you need to educate people and do not let them do it. But of course, it would be, again, not really realistic. And what you actually can do is try to, in the online context, for example, block such a content, report such a content. And for example, if it happens like on Facebook, then there is already the Facebook oversight board, which means that you already went through a reporting procedure, and you don't find or you don't get any remedies, then you can apply to the oversight board, and if they take the case, then they will provide you a result. But of course, I don't have like a magic wand, and I cannot say that, yes, if you do that, it will happen. I think it's a long process, and it's based upon education, which, for example, in Hungary, I think we're a bit behind, because, for example, in most of the schools in primary and high schools, we don't even teach how you should move safely in the online sphere. So I think that it could be a problem. But for example, in the offline bullying in school context, according to, for example, the Kiva program, which is developed by the University of Turku, it's a Finnish program which could be applicable worldwide. They said that they have a Kiva team. They educate the teachers, they educate the children, and if there is a bullying arise, children know that they can go, even anonymously, I think, but I'm not sure about that, and report that it happened, and then there will be like a professional intervention, how you should treat that. So these all, I think it's a long road. So I don't have like an instant solution.
Thank you very much. for your answer. We have another question for you, and that is, what is the difference between bullying and harassment?
Okay, so that's again a very good question. First of all, the power imbalance. In bullying, there must be a power imbalance between the two parties. But according to the criminal law definition of harassment, you don't need such a thing. And you can, for example, according to harassment, you threat somebody in order to create fear that you are gonna commit some serious crime, usually like assault or I don't know, I think even homicide is included. So the definition of the facts is completely different. The only thing which fit into the context is that you repeatedly want to get involved and really invade somebody's privacy. So that's the common element, but the other in the criminal law definition is different. In the discriminative way, there is not so many difference. So if we would focus on the discriminative or the discrimination law definition, the only missing element is really the power imbalance. And I would say that it does not include the online activities. So of course, if you really extend the definition, then you can apply it. But usually it is like a typical like discriminative cases and not on cyberbullying. But I had a student who made a research on that, what should be changed. And actually, with only a slight difference in a definition of the Hungarian Discrimination Act, we could open up even the courts and administrative authorities to deal with bullying issues. So with discriminative harassment, there aren't so many differences.
Thank you so much for your answer. We have a question for Saga now. The question is, or it's a comment from a person who says that she has experienced some of the symptoms that you mentioned in your presentation, Saga, but she says that it feels normal to her and she doesn't really know if she should look for help. What can you say to her?
See, I answered this question privately, but I think it's good to for everyone maybe to hear it. So let me find what I wrote so I don't argue with myself. So what I said was, I think it's important to find, it depends where you are, but there should be an organization online and to keep it low threshold for you to find the help that you need or just explore what you're going through. If you can find an organization where they can help you assess, maybe in a chat room or something similar. And then if you don't feel comfortable with that, most organizations, serious organizations regarding eating disorder will let you self-assess on their website. So you can go through a short quiz where you can see where you fall and take it from there. And they will usually also have guides of who you can contact in your area for help. So start with Googling eating disorder self-assessment. It would probably be the lowest threshold for you to start exploring how you feel. Yeah.
Thank you so much. There was another question that you also answered, but I think it's something we can mention here as well, and that is why Tjejstunden has a focus on girls.
Right. We get this question a lot. I find it very interesting that people like to ask this, and I understand the question. We identified a need in '98 where girls were not getting a safe space to speak about their issues. So there was a need to provide this place, and there are since then, of course, there's other places, but we've specialized in this now, so we feel comfortable in our field of expertise, and we prefer to leave the other target groups for organizations who have specialized in that. So you can never do everything, so we like to specialize and make sure we give qualitative support to to what we know as a group.
Thank you. We have another question here, and I think perhaps John could answer this one. It is about how someone who deals with dark thoughts, how should that person, when this person says dark thoughts, it's about mental illness, it could, in a very wide sense, I think here, what would be your recommendation to someone who's dealing with dark thoughts? How can that person get help?
It's an interesting question. I looked at it and I was been thinking about it because first of all, it's true. Although there has been a change in this during my lifetime, which I'm very grateful for, because when I was a teenager, it was very much more of a stigma, at least here in Sweden. My parents were really afraid of psychologists and everything that dealt with mental health. But we have seen that it's gotten better the last decades or so. There are more students nowadays that come out and say, I struggle from panic attacks, I have anxiety, I had this bout of depression, and we need to have that change continue, so it gets more like, it shouldn't be worse to say that you suffer depression than to say that you break your leg or you had a problem with your gallbladder or whatever. There is really no difference between physical and psychological illnesses, but people don't think like that still. But I hope we would get better. But I can really relate to this, the question, because it's so easy that it gets to be a bad circle, where you think that you feel even worse when you think about these questions. But my experience is that maybe if you start, if we all start to be more open about it, we help not only ourselves but actually people around us. At my workplace where I worked 10 years ago or something, one of my colleagues, which I really looked up to, got diagnosed with a really bad case of depression and was actually committed to hospital because of this. But he was open about it. He decided that he would come out and say this to everyone. Okay, I'm suffering from depression right now. And in that workplace, it really changed the whole atmosphere. Suddenly it was okay for everyone to say, okay, I feel anxious today, or I have this, in my family, there is one person suffering from this or something. Because if one person starts to become more open, my experience is that more people start thinking that it's okay. And we really need that change to happen in society for things to get better. I don't know if I answered the question, but it was an attempt anyway.
Great, thank you very much. We will finish here with one last question. And it says here it's related to COVID, and I think I'll put this question as an open question to see who wants to answer it. But with the increase of online courses in the last few years, do you feel it could increase students' isolation? The person here says that some students, they don't ever see their teachers in real life, and it might be harder to notice physical symptoms. Do you have any tips about how you can help students online?
Is that directed at me, or?
It was an open question, but if you would like to, please go ahead and answer.
I think that it has been difficult for many students with these online classes when they haven't, we have many people who have come to counseling haven't actually met their new classmates. They haven't had anyone to talk to. And whenever you're alone with your problems, it gets worse. So of course it's been difficult, but the good thing is that there are promising results when it comes to online treatment, both via where you talk to a person over the phone or by Zoom, or actually just follow a web page, have been showing very promising results. So it's both actually. I don't know if somebody else can say something about this also.
Otherwise, we will stop there because I see that the time is already 2:30. And we would like to invite everyone to an optional discussion that we will hold today at 3. So you will receive an email with the link. It will be a Zoom meeting and we will continue the discussion there. So everyone who would like to join are very welcome. And I think other than that, we would like to thank all of our panelists and our fantastic moderator, Jan, as well for today. I think it has been a very fruitful and interesting discussion. So a big thanks to everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Thanks for the invitation. Bye-bye.
Bye.